Today's story paints a dark picture of a world controlled by secret organizations. But how much of this is true?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of it is.
The Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, and the Council on Foreign Relations exist. Their members hold powerful positions in government, corporations, and international institutions. Their meetings often coincide with significant global events. Still, a leap to a new world order is a big one. That said, we can't dismiss the idea entirely. Their lack of transparency and concentration of power is a problem that leads to corruption. Members bounce from government to media to think tanks and back again. How can an anchor report the news honestly if their last job was at the White House? They can't, and they don't. Look, cable news isn't news, it's entertainment. Left or right, it doesn't matter. They don't tell you the truth. They're paid to regurgitate propaganda coming from corporate and political leadership.
Who may or may not actually be lizard people.
They want you to argue with your family and your neighbors. While you're on Facebook or Twitter bickering over politics, you're not really paying attention. But here's a little secret. The people within these powerful groups, regardless of party or ideology, don't hate each other. They work together. They push for centralized global power and interventionism. Interventionism means war, by the way. They say their policies will bring prosperity and stability, but all we've seen is rising inequality and war after war. Their policies have failed.
Yeah, their policies brought prosperity and stability to their offshore bank accounts.
That's true. For decades, they've controlled foreign policy. They've created a system that intermingles public and private interests to benefit a select few at the expense of the rest of us.
The American people had to bail out AIG, but most Americans still lost 40 to 50% of their retirement plans.
If we had not made that action, they would have lost 70%.
They say short-term sacrifices must be made for a better future. A better future for who? In 1970, the top 10% of the U.S. population earned 30% of total income. Now they earn almost 50%. In 1970, they owned 60% of total wealth. Now they own almost 80%. That's why I kept talking about the 2008 financial crisis. My parents lost half their retirement savings. Regular people got hurt.
More big-name companies made plans to shed workers.
The bank that got billions in free money from the taxpayers then turns around, cuts off credit to a local business, and then won't authorize workers to get a penny upon leaving with 3 days' notice. We're outraged.
Now, do I believe the crash was orchestrated by one of these secret groups? No. But the crisis was caused by Wall Street greed and corrupt regulators who were members of these groups. They crashed the system and we had to bail them out.
This is mom and pop grocery stores don't get this break. When they make bad financial decisions, they go out of business. But the rich and famous Wall Street, New York City fat cats expect Joe's six-pack to buck it up and pay for all this nonsense.
We were told they're too big to fail. We could lose our homes. The economy could collapse. We have to bail out the banks, insurance companies, big car manufacturers.
It's a global financial crisis, so please take our money, raise our taxes, raise them.
And they did. And those companies were saved. And wealthy executives got even wealthier. Bear with me for a second. Our taxes funded these bonuses. James Gorman of Morgan Stanley got a $4.9 million bonus. John Stumpf, Wells Fargo, almost $6 million. Lloyd Blankfein, Goldman Sachs, $9 million. John Thain, Merrill Lynch, $15 million bonus. Kenneth Chenault, American Express, almost $19 million. Vikram Pandit, Citigroup, $24 million. Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase, $29 million. Robert Kelly, Bank of New York Mellon, $35 million. Lawrence M. Small, Fannie Mae, almost $43 million. While regular people lost their homes, savings, and retirement accounts, Citigroup cut Andrew Hall a bonus check for $100 million. I just read you the top 10 list. In total, about $20 billion was paid to bankers as bonuses after the bailout. Every executive and politician involved in that crisis should have gone to prison. Instead, they bought more homes, yachts, and private planes, and we paid for it. The Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, and the Council on Foreign Relations have real power over your life. They need to be watched closely. They'll present appealing ideas, global cooperation, a healthier population, a cleaner environment. We all want these. But when those ideas come from people who operate in secret, you have to ask, how does this idea benefit them? Because it always does. So what can we do? We have to elect leaders who demand transparency and accountability. But first, we have to care. We have to get off our phones, open our eyes, and get engaged. We have to stop giving up our freedom so easily.
What the hell do you think she's gonna do? Set off a shoe bomb?
This happened at Dulles Airport outside Washington. The woman's daughter complained that the search was, quote, prolonged and repetitive. It lasted for 6 minutes.
Every time there's a global crisis, the elites promise to keep us safe. All we have to do is give up a little more freedom.
And by passing the Patriot Act, we will make America safer while safeguarding our civil liberties and privacy.
A top-secret court order is forcing Verizon to turn over all phone records for calls made in the U.S. to the National Security Agency, and not just calls made to overseas numbers. When you call grandma in Nebraska, the NSA knows.
During the past week, we have heard about a series of major violations of our civil liberties, including the fact that NSA is collecting the phone records of tens of millions of Americans. This wholesale snooping on innocent Americans is an unacceptable violation of one of our most basic freedoms.
They don't seize power, we give it to them.
So the couple is vaccinated and got tested ahead of their trip to Hawaii as required. But when they arrived in Honolulu, they were ordered to quarantine in their hotel room or face arrest.
And once they acquire a new power, they don't give it back.
To require people to stay home, require people to not go to work, and to arrest people for trying to make a living, this all seems wrong.
As long as these secret groups have power, there will always be another crisis they'll have to solve.
The humanitarian crisis.
Our response has been to the crisis.
The refugee crisis.
A crisis in the markets.
Accelerating global food crisis.
The financial crisis.
Worst of the humanitarian crisis.
A fiscal crisis.
The public health crisis.
A banking crisis.
Its refugee crisis.
And a growth crisis.
The climate crisis.
The climate crisis.
The crisis of the old order.
The crisis in the Central African Republic.
Crisis of indifference.
The Ukraine crisis.
Or Ebola, or a crisis.
The economic, social, and political crisis.
Humanitarian crises.
The missile crisis.
As long as these secret groups have power, there will always be another crisis they'll have to solve. They'll promise to keep us safe. We just have to give up a little more freedom. Then a little more. Then just a little more. Eventually, we'll have no freedoms left. We'll be dependent on the select few who have all the power that slowly over time we gave them. Those select few know this. They want us distracted. They want us divided. Because they know that to create a new world order, all they have to do is wait.